our biggest health challenges don't have conventional medical cures for them or treatments. Let's think of dementia. Let's think of growing problems of chronic pain and of depression and problems of anxiety and low levels of well-being. All of these problems seem to be increasing and don't have a magic bullet to treat them. We think that brain health is a critical approach to helping build resilience against all of these conditions. Not necessarily prevent all of them, but prevent many of them by getting people to use their brains differently from how they're using them just now. And we think that creativity is a critical part of how the brain can engage with the world in a way that produces a sense of meaning, a sense of control, and a sense of optimism about the future of their own health. Highlights today include the Forget-Me-Nots choir, people with dementia and their carers singing and showing the power of music to change the brain and change well-being. Because that's what today is about. It's about the relationship in creativity, the brain, and well-being and health.
So today we've been talking about the arts and creativity in the context of health. And one of the main themes has been how can we raise further awareness with respect to arts and creativity in the healthcare space, both in educational institutions and in policy institutions. There have been some very good presentations and really deep reflection on how best to approach this in the context of geopolitical crises, coupled with, what would be the best in an ideal situation. And the conclusion was an institute for creativity and aging would be wonderful to draw all of the activity together, almost like a national hub for this, with different skill sets to enhance the capacity for researchers.
So the Forget-Me-Nots choir is a family interest really. My mother, Kathleen Tierney, had Alzheimer's disease, and when she was diagnosed, first of all, we as a family didn't really know what to do, how to connect, and found the diagnosis very difficult. And Orla, my sister, Orla Horn, had heard on the radio about the Unforgettables choir based in New York, and she rang around a few different choirs and there was nothing available, and she said, Orla being Orla, I'll start a choir, which she did. And in the early days there were 6 or 7 people around a piano. So from those early days we now have 130 people in the choir with a waiting list. About a third of the choir have dementia, about a third are caregivers, are family members, and there's another third of volunteers. We've been in the Áras na nUachtaráin, we've performed in the Dáil, we've performed in the National Concert Hall, in the National Gallery, and we performed in St. Patrick's Cathedral, and many gigs. But then when the pandemic struck, it became really difficult. We decided, right, let's get everybody on Zoom. That was a bit of a challenge. So today is a really important day. It was the first day we sang together in more than 2 years. We're buzzed.
So myself and Francesca Farina, we've actually worked together before. We were both basically talking about poetry and neuroscience, the overlap. So Francesca comes to poetry as a neuroscientist, I come to poetry as a literary scholar, and we basically talked about our experiences as two people who come to these two topics together, but from very different perspectives and our areas of overlap. I think it's wonderful. It should be Creative Brain Month. I mean, honestly, I feel like what's being laid down here is the foundations for so much future collaborations and future conversations and talks. I think there's no one that wouldn't enjoy at least some aspect of the week, so hopefully it'll continue along into the future.
So today Amelia and I were talking about Poemathon 2022. So essentially it's a big collaborative poem. We've invited former President of Ireland Mary Robinson to write the first line, the opening line of a poem that's around the theme of brain health and climate crisis. And now we've put it open to the public and we're asking our older generations to submit lines in response to that. They'll all be put together and combined into a collaborative poem. My general thoughts on Creative Brain Week: every week should be Creative Brain Week. It's amazing. I think it's wonderful to be hearing about how we all have such creativity. If we could have Creative Brain Week more often, I think we'd all be better for it.
So today, myself and my colleague Glenna Batson, we presented on a project that we did back in 2018. So it was called Dance Unlimited, Meet and Move. So the idea behind Meet and Move was that it wasn't for just one particular section of the community, it was for everyone. So it really was a place and a space for everyone in the community to come in and dance together. So the idea of even just connecting for this week has been so great. Yeah, I feel inspired.
We spoke about our collaboration and creative kind of endeavor that we call Brain FM. It's we call it an educational tool, but really it's a weaving of science and dance, where we use the experience of dance to learn about different concepts about the brain.
But to me personally, what Brain FM is an amalgamation of the arts and the science, and I'm someone who doesn't view the science and the arts as two polar opposites, and I think a lot of people here at Creative Brain Week have reflected the idea of science and the arts is they're not two different things, they're really the same thing. To me, discovering that amalgamation of the science and the arts has been a personal journey, and it has been a journey of self-discovery.
But what we do need to work on is be really conscientious and intentional in creating spaces and cultivating spaces that allow those ideas to sprout, bloom, and then flourish. And I think Dominic Campbell B. Keller did a wonderful job along with GBHI in Trinity College Dublin in sprouting that seed and creating lots of little blooms. And now I think it's up to us to make sure that we cultivate them and find new ways that they'll weave together and really grow into a wonderful tapestry of ideas.